What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I am the Beaver. If you've seen my last video, MCU's Biggest Wasted Villains Part 1, then you already know how I feel about Marvel's hit and miss villain record. This time around, we're not talking about villains that were just okay. We're talking about the ones Marvel flat out wasted. Characters that could have defined entire phases of the MCU, reduced to side quests, punchlines, or glorified cameos. From Iron Man's fallen reflections to cosmic tyrants turned whiners. These are villains who had the potential to be legendary. This is part 2 of the MCU's biggest wasted villain. Let's get into it.
Like this, subscribe, like this video.
Let's start with Whiplash. Because if anyone deserved better, it's him. In Iron Man 2, we meet Ivan Vanko, played by Mickey Rourke, a bitter genius building death machines in a dingy workshop while feeding a bird. And while everyone remembers the bird memes, nobody remembers that Vanko was supposed to represent Tony's worst fear, that his legacy could fall into the wrong hands. In the comics, Whiplash, also known as Mark Scarlatti, was one of Tony's most dangerous enemies, a brilliant engineer turned mercenary who fused technology and brutality in equal measure. Later incarnations like Anton Vanko expanded that legacy. Men with intelligence equal to Stark, but none of his conscience. Iron Man's entire arc was built on accountability. So imagine the tension of fighting someone who's just as smart, just as creative, but who uses that genius to destroy. That's what Whiplash should have been. Tony's dark mirror. Instead, Marvel turned him into a cookie-cutter run-of-the-mill supervillain. He spends most of the movie mumbling, then disappears until the last 10 minutes. And when he finally returns, he gets vaporized faster than the runtime of the scene. It's not Mickey Rourke's fault. The man delivered an underrated performance with the little that he had. But Marvel took a potential intellectual rival and made him a disposable boss fight. They had the perfect opportunity to show that Tony's technology could create monsters as easily as it creates heroes. Instead, we got I Want My Bird. The Marvels had potential. Say what you want about the tone or the pacing, this could have been the movie that explored the Kree's collapse and their moral gray area after Captain Marvel's war crimes. And then they gave us Dar-Benn.
Neo.
To you?
Okay.
In the comics, Dar-Benn is a male Kree general who overthrows the Empire in a coup. He's ruthless, strategic, and manipulative. A soldier who sees the corruption of the Kree leadership and decides to seize control himself. The MCU version, though, she's just angry. No political nuance, no layers, no vision beyond "you ruined my planet." You had the perfect chance to show the Kree as something more than blue-skinned tyrants, to make Dar-Benn a cosmic tactician, rebuilding her world through fear and precision. Instead, she's a glorified side villain with a glowing hammer and an expiration date. They had the potential to give us Marvel's Grand Admiral Thrawn, but Marvel's obsession with speed made her a footnote in her own story. A Kree general who once ruled an empire turned into a villain you forget before the credits finish. Let's talk about Yon-Rogg, the man who should have been one of MCU's most psychologically dangerous villains.
I'm so proud of you. You've come a long way since I found you that day by the lake.
In the comic, Yon-Rogg is a complex manipulator. He's Mar-Vell's rival in the Kree military. Jealous, paranoid, and obsessed with control. His rivalry literally creates Carol Danvers. He's not just a bad guy. He's a narcissist who crafts his own enemies. That's the kind of depth the MCU desperately needed at the time. But in 2019's Captain Marvel, he trains Carol, lies to her for 20 minutes, gets one punch, and then disappears from existence like a forgotten DLC character. They had all the pieces for a mentor turned monster dynamic. A man who's obsessed with shaping Carol into his image, only to lose control when she surpasses him. Instead, they turned him into a bland authority figure with no bite, no fear, and no fallout. Imagine a version where Yon-Rogg manipulates both Carol and Mar-Vell, trying to rewrite Kree history to his advantage. A villain who believes he's the hero, but Marvel cut him down to one act of relevance and a space punch goodbye. It's not Jude Law's fault, it's the writing. Yon-Rogg could have been Marvel's Ra's al Ghul, a philosophical nemesis, not just another mission objective. Let's talk about Darren Cross, or as most people remember him, that bald guy from Ant-Man. And that right there sums up the problem.
What do you call the only man who can arm the most powerful weapon in the world?
The most powerful man in the world.
In the comic, Darren Cross isn't some random business rival. He's a full-on scientific psychopath. He pushes technology so far that his body literally starts rejecting it. His obsession with progress becomes his cure. He mutates his own heart, trying to perfect Pym's research. That's not just greed, that's mad science. He's meant to represent what happens when genius has no moral boundaries. If Hank Pym is the scientist with a conscience, Darren Cross is the one who burned his out in the name of power. But in the movie, he's just evil businessman number 37. Every scene he's in, he's either yelling, threatening, or trying to sell his tech like a sketchy car salesman. There's no nuance, no psychological edge, no descent into madness that makes you fear him. Imagine if Marvel had leaned into that, made Cross the face of corporate obsession. A man so desperate to surpass his mentor that he ends up becoming the monster he wanted to control. He could have been a reoccurring character in the corporate world, using science as a weapon, showing up across multiple franchises, funding villains, or even aligning himself with groups like AIM or Damage Control. Instead, he came back as MODOK, who I talked about in the last video. But in the movie, his whole entire personality boils down to, I'm not Hank Pym. He could have been the MCU's blueprint for grounded human corruption. Instead, he's another casualty in Marvel's Phase 2 villain problem, a promising setup that never got the follow-through it deserved.
So this is my vow. All gods will die.
This one made me mad. Gorr the God Butcher could have been one of the greatest. In Jason Aaron's comic run, Gorr is terrifying. His origin is pure tragedy. A man who loses everything, prays to the gods for help, and realizes the universe doesn't care. So he kills them. All of them. He spent centuries hunting deities across galaxies. And the scope of his story is cosmic horror mixed with philosophy. He makes gods fear mortality. He forces Thor to question his own worth. Now, in Thor Love and Thunder, Christian Bale came to act. You can see the pain, the conviction, the broken face, but the movie didn't know what to do with him. They cut entire sequences of him butchering God. Instead of a galactic genocide, we got a kidnapping subplot with children and shadow monsters. Marvel could have made Gorr their Darth Vader, a villain of conviction who makes you question your belief, but instead, they made him the villain of a romantic comedy. The Necro Sword should have been treated like a cursed relic, the weapon that slowly consumes him, that turns pain into madness. Instead, it's just another piece of CGI. Bale gave a Shakespearean performance trapped in a TikTok-paced movie. And that's the biggest tragedy of all. The God Butcher deserved more gods to butcher. Imagine what could have been if Taika Waititi made a more serious Thor movie rather than trying to outdo the humor from Thor Ragnarok.
Don't hurt me. Don't hurt me. No more. You really shouldn't trust the Wakandans. I'm much more your speed.
Andy Serkis as Ulysses Klaue was lightning in the bottle. The dude was made for the role. He was that perfect blend of menace and charisma that Marvel rarely nails. In the comics, Klaue is Wakanda's original devil. He kills T'Chaka's father, steals vibranium, and later turns his entire body into solid sound energy. He's not just a smuggler, he's a reoccurring curse that never dies. So when Serkis brought that energy to life in Avengers Age of Ultron and Black Panther, I was hyped. I, as many others, thought, okay, this is the guy who's gonna keep coming back. This is Wakanda's Joker. But no, halfway through Black Panther, he gets killed by Killmonger. And don't get me wrong, Killmonger was, in my opinion, one of the best villains in MCU history. But Klaue could have been so much more. Imagine him forming his own crime network, destabilizing regions, smuggling vibranium to the black market, feeding conflict from the shadows. He could have been a reoccurring villain across multiple films, the human chaos factor that the Avengers can't control. We could have even dove deeper into his past business relationship with Tony Stark. Instead, he's a setup device, a stepping stone, a disposable lunatic used to justify the next villain's rise. Ulysses Klaue should have been a legacy villain. Instead, he's a reminder that even great characters can get wiped out by lazy storytelling. If there's one name that still haunts the MCU's villain roster, it's Malekith the Accursed. In the comics, Malekith is mythic. He's part Loki, part Sauron, a sorcerer king who uses trickery, magic, and cruelty to plunge the realms into chaos. He orchestrated the War of the Realms, an event so massive it united nearly every Marvel hero against him. Now in Thor the Dark World, we got a guy in prosthetics, barely speaks, barely threatens, and gets defeated like an inconvenience. Christopher Eccleston, a phenomenal actor, got completely buried under makeup and bad editing. They stripped Malekith of everything that made him terrifying. His cunning, his wit, his godlike ambition. He should have been the bridge between Asgard's mythology and Marvel's cosmic scale, showing us that magic, when unchecked, is just another form of science gone mad. Instead, he's a PowerPoint presentation of a generic villain. And what's worse, Thor never even grows from fighting him. He's just there, a placeholder villain in the movie that forgot why it existed. There's not even a mention of him or the movie later on. Malekith was supposed to be a dark reflection of Asgard's arrogance. Instead, he became the symbol of Marvel's mid-phase slump. Red Skull should have been the face of evil in the MCU. In the comics, he's more than a Nazi. He's a man so obsessed with his power that he becomes timeless. He manipulates governments, rebuilds Hydra from the ashes, and is always 10 steps ahead. He's Captain America's eternal enemy, the darkness to Cap's light. In the first Avenger, Hugo Weaving embodied that perfectly. Arrogant, cruel, and obsessed with divine power. He was everything you'd want in a Phase 1 villain. Then the Tesseract sucks him up, and he vanishes. For years, fans speculated he'd return leading Hydra, or secretly influencing global politics. I was one of them. Instead, he reappears in Infinity War as the Soul Stone's tour guide. From a genocidal mastermind to an intergalactic theory, Red Skull should have been the MCU's constant, an evil that never dies, influencing every war and every Hydra plotline. Instead, he's reduced to a ghost cameo. He's supposed to be the devil on Cap's shoulder, not the guy giving cosmic direction. And finally, the leader.
He imprisoned me here without a trial after an infusion of gamma warped the structure of my brain.
This one still pisses me off. The villain Marvel teased 17 years ago and then straight up forgot. Back in The Incredible Hulk, Samuel Stearns gets gamma blood dripped into his skull. His head swells, his grin grows, and comic fans went crazy at the time. That was the leader's birth. In the comics, he's Bruce Banner's perfect opposite. Where the Hulk is pure rage, the leader is pure intellect. He manipulates, he experiments, he controls. He doesn't need to throw a single punch. He wins through mind games. He should have been the guy pulling strings behind the scenes, connecting all of Marvel's science gone wrong. Stark's tech, Pym particles, the super soldier serum, all of it could have tied back to him. The intellectual Thanos of the MCU. No Infinity Stones, no gauntlet, just pure genius and control. But instead, they forgot him. 17 years with no mention, no tease, no nothing. Then finally, he returns in Captain America Brave New World. And what do? They fumbled the bag harder than any villain Marvel's ever had. Instead of bringing him back as a mastermind with years of plotting under his belt, they turn him into a glorified footnote. He's supposed to be this calm, calculating manipulator, and somehow he's out here trying to pull off a political coup against the president? That's not the leader. That's some half-baked government thriller nonsense. And then his big plan fails instantly. No depth, no backup plan, no contingency, just years of hype flushed down the drain. Then Marvel hits us with that mid-credit scene where he suddenly knows about other worlds and multiverse level stuff. Like, what? How do you go from failing to overthrow the president to dropping cosmic exposition? It makes zero sense. There's no connective tissue, no setup, no logic, just Marvel trying to pretend like it's all part of some grand master plan that clearly doesn't exist. And let's not forget the horrendous design they did on his character. Instead of going with the traditional look of a giant head and green, they made him look like a Temu version of Brainiac. In the first look of the leader, they showed a design that most fans were happy about and changed their minds last minute and gave us one of the worst character designs the MCU has ever done for a villain. The leader was supposed to be the embodiment of human intellect, pushed to godlike levels. Instead, he's written like a confused background villain in his own comeback movie. No menace, no consistency, no payoff. At this point, his return feels less like the culmination of a long tease and more like Marvel scrambling to clean up its own forgotten homework. The leader didn't lose to the Hulk. He lost to Marvel's own writing room. So there you have it. More villains the MCU completely wasted. Marvel kept playing it safe. And when you play safe with villains, you lose what makes heroes matter. A hero is only as great as their enemy. Without a real challenge, the story's just another CGI fight. Maybe one day, Marvel remembers that. And who knows, maybe they'll redeem themselves in Avengers Doomsday. But until then, I'll be here calling it how I see it. I am the Beaver, and this has been the MCU's Biggest Wasted Villains Part 2. Like, share, and subscribe. And if you haven't yet, go watch Part 1. I'll leave the link down in the description. Follow me on Instagram, X, and TikTok at the Beaver X, and I'll see you in the next one.